Hello. I've been in the watch industry for 15 years, and that means I know many things. Most of them are things that I know because I have made mistakes, and so today I'm going to share some of those mistakes that I have made so you can learn from them. These are 10 do's and don'ts for watches. One of my favourite things about watches is doing the research. It's not only very important to make sure you're safe and secure in your purchase, it's also a really fun part about learning why the watch is interesting. Now, I'm the kind of person that likes to read absolutely everything I can find on a single topic, and once I've read it all, I read it all again. Sometimes you can find that the stuff that you read initially makes more sense with the knowledge that you've gained later on in your journey. You not only get to learn about the specs, but you will learn about other people's experiences, including pitfalls and the things that the marketing blurb doesn't tell you. But you also have experiences along the way that make the journey of buying that watch all the more rich. For example, when I was researching into a Hamilton Intramatic chronograph for a Watchfinder video, I discovered along the way, learning that Hamilton was in fact a great American pocket watch maker, the Caliber 992B. This is a pocket watch caliber that is incredibly beautiful and really affordable, and I would have had no idea had I not done my research. And now I own a lovely pocket watch that cost me barely anything. So make sure you do your research and enjoy it while you do. However, you can do too much research. You can read everything over and over and over again and tie yourself up in knots to the point where you're just frustrated. It comes to a point where there is no more to learn and you just need to go and try the product on for yourself. Now, that can be tricky when the purchase is online only, but usually places allow you to try something and return it if you don't like it. The point is, there's only so much you can learn about a watch from reading. Theory only gets you so far. Now, this is true for me of the Longines sector dial. I really love that watch, and in pictures it looks fantastic, but when I tried it on in person, there was just something about the balance that didn't quite work for me. Now, I had spent a long time thinking that this was going to be my next watch, and in trying it, I found out it wasn't. That could have been so much more painful had I wound myself up reading about it for years and years. Ask me how I know. Now, I've seen people who have posted saying that they purchased their first watch but 6 months ago and now they have 10. For me, that's just crazy. As I said, so much of the enjoyment is in the journey, and so when you rush to buy as many as possible, you aren't allowing yourself to grow and mature as a collector to make sure each of those purchases is the one you really want. I mean, what's the rush? Spend time thinking about it, looking through the jeweler's windows, teasing yourself, hyping yourself, trying it on again, building up the memories that make the actual purchase so much more rewarding. Who knows, the people you meet and the conversations you'll have and the stuff that you'll try on in that journey might completely change your purchasing experience entirely. You may even end up buying another watch. You just want to make sure that you give yourself the time to purchase the watch that's right for you and not just react on an impulse. For me, I once purchased an Omega Speedmaster Automatic because it was a good deal. I wanted the Moonwatch, but this one was right there, right at the time, and I bought it and I thought it looked great, and ultimately the purchase felt hollow afterwards. And guess what I did? I sold it and I bought a Moonwatch and I lost money. So make sure you take your time with your purchase. But don't take too long. You can stretch this out into infinity and take way too long and never actually experience the joy of purchasing a watch at all. You might find yourself waiting for some kind of revelation that's going to make it feel like this watch is 100% the right thing for you. You've read everything, you've tried it on, you've spoken to people, you've been on the forums, you've been to events, and still you're waiting for that little click. A watch isn't a magic trick. It's not going to tell you that it's perfect. You need to eventually take that leap for yourself and make the purchase. It's never going to be 100%, it is just a watch after all. Back in 2018, I first tried on a Tudor Black Bay 58 and I ummed and I ahed and I liked it and I wasn't sure and I read stuff and I tried it on again and again and again and again, and I eventually bought it some 3 years later. And those are 3 years I missed out on enjoying what is a really great watch. Which brings me to my next point. Of course, you need to be sensible with your finances. You don't just want to go throwing money around like Scrooge McDuck. Does he throw money around? Oh, he's miserly, isn't he?
He's Scrooge.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Now, of course, you need to be reasonable with your finances, but it can go too far. You don't want to turn yourself into a Scrooge McDuck sleeping on a big pile of cash and never spending it. So make sure, every once in a while, when you feel like you need rewarding, that you treat yourself. After all, the great security of many watches is that they have a good resale value. You don't have to treat them like money that's completely disappeared. It is possible to liquidate them and get much of that cash back. Of course, you want to be comfortable with the purchase, but it's so important to make sure that you actually enjoy the time you have on this planet. So many people feel like they don't deserve something. They find it hard to make purchases for themselves. If there's a watch you absolutely have to have and you just don't feel like you're worth it, take the time to think about that. If you can afford it, if it's what you really want, why don't you deserve it? Enjoy yourself. Have fun. I personally do struggle to get past the guilt of treating myself, and more often than not, it's my wife who twists my arm and tells me to get the thing I want. Love you. However, what you also don't want to do is to become desensitized to the prices of watches. It's so easy to see the watches that people talk about and start to disassociate thousands and thousands of pounds with a lot of money. This is so true when you immerse yourself into the community and you realise the average price is so high. But the exposure to it en masse can really start to change the way your brain thinks, and you need to remember that money has an absolute value. You can also see people posting huge collections online and think that you are not worth as much if you don't have a collection like that yourself. It's important to be reasonable and make sure you continue to normalise what you're seeing within the context of your own life. You need to stay grounded and remember how much a pound is actually worth. For me, being around watches all the time has really desensitized me to prices. You find yourself saying silly things like, £10,000, that's good value. And it's ridiculous. Keep yourself grounded. Of course, buying a watch isn't just about the purchase, it's about the ownership experience, and once you have gone through that journey, it can feel like that watch is going to be with you forever. But that's not always the case. They are, after all, inanimate objects. Some might be tied to personal experiences you've had, but ultimately they are just trinkets. You can have invested so much time, effort and money into purchasing one that to let it go again can feel almost traitorous. But I'll remind you again, it is just a watch. If you've fallen out of love with it, if you need the money for something else, if you like another watch, sell it. It's fine. So many people feel guilty about selling a product and end up amassing more than they really want, and you just don't have to. You don't want to find yourself with a collection of 10 watches and realise, what am I doing? If you enjoy the watches, by all means, build up that collection, but don't ever feel like you can't move one on. Having said that, you can also move things on a little bit too easily. Now, the grass isn't always greener, and yes, the shine of a new watch will wear off slightly, but you have to think also about the long term. Take your time to think whether fading interest is just the lack of new watch-itis and whether or not the watch is really good for your collection. What you don't want to do is sell it and then miss it when it's gone. If I'm honest, I tend to hear more stories from people talking about the watches they regret selling than the watches they are happy to have purchased. There are a whole number of watches that I let go that I really wish I hadn't. So make sure before you throw the thing out the door to get the new thing that you have thought about the long term and whether or not that watch might be good for you in the years to come. Now, there is so much to learn in this particular industry that trying to accumulate all that knowledge by yourself is incredibly difficult. There's a lot of it about, a lot of it contradicts itself, and you might find yourself tied in knots. So do make sure you ask other people for their advice. The watch collecting community is one of the absolute best in the world, and it is full of people who are overjoyed to be sharing what they have learned with you to help you buy the best watch for you. There are magazines and forums and events full of people who are willing to share their advice, and don't be worried by how silly you think your question is. It may have been asked a million times before, but there will be someone who will answer it for you. It's better to ask that question and save yourself money than buy a watch you don't want and realise you've made a mistake. One of the very first watches that I purchased was a U-boat, something I thought I would really love, only to find out when I researched wider into the community after the purchase that it wasn't so great after all. It was a good learning experience for me ultimately, but I could have saved myself a few £1,000s in the process. But as good as all that advice is, there's one person that you should make sure you listen to every time, and that is you.
I thought you were going to say you should listen to your wife.
Listen to yourself. Don't take on the advice of other people and ignore how you really feel. You can do too much research or not enough. You can take too long or not take long enough. You can buy a watch that's too cheap or too expensive. You might not treat yourself enough, or you might be overzealous. The main thing to do is to stop, listen to yourself, and feel what you think is right for you. You might not always be correct, but this is your journey, and whether you make the right decisions or not, it's all part of growing your collection and your experience for you. You want this to be your journey, not a journey that's being curated by other people telling you what to like. Ultimately, the only person who can know which watch you should purchase is you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If there are any other do's and don'ts that you think should be in this list, post them down in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe as well, and if you want to see more from me, check me out over on the Watchfinder channel as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.